This is when women of color are facing both gender and racial biases, and then there's this conflicting expectation based on gender and racial stereotypes. So I'm a woman, I'm a Black woman, and there's this expectation that Black women probably are supposed to stay in their place. They are not supposed to rock the boat. They are not supposed to challenge the status quo, and they need to be good, kind women and know their place and not try to do something different than maybe caretake, be home with the children. This is happening, like we're seeing this in our world right now. But I want you to know that for women of color, it is a double bind because of our Blackness or our being Hispanic or being Asian. Thing called the myth of the pipeline problem. And this is when organizations claim that there's a lack of diverse candidates out there. And they're like, there's no candidates, there's nobody to, interview, there's nobody to bring into the organization. We just can't find the expertise that we need. When the reality is, it's actually a retention and promotion process because we get those people in. And then we don't know how to retain them. We don't promote them. And so they leave. And then when people are looking at the organization, they don't see representation. And so they're like, why should I go there? I'm your host, TaSheena Braxton, and I am on a mission to disrupt the industry standard that fancy titles make leaders and teaching my clients how to become leaders and get their own seats at the table. Every week, I will explore a topic that impacts women of color. I will unpack the topic and provide learning so that you can feel equipped to step into leadership. I went from laid off to an entry-level job to a mid-level multiple six figures role where I wasn't the highest on the org chart, but I was able to sit in rooms with CEOs, CFOs, and CMOs without a fancy title. As a mom of 4, a wife, and the eldest daughter of 6, I know what it means to lead in every aspect of your life and to be able to translate that into the workplace. Welcome to the Leadership Beyond the Title podcast. So glad to have you here. Now let's get into it. Hello. Hope y'all doing well today. Welcome back to the podcast. As I'm recording this, it is bright and early in the morning, Pacific Standard Time, and I'm in San Francisco, and it's one of those gloomy days. We just recently came out of a heat wave, and now it is gloomy. And this is the week of my birthday, and I just knew that it wouldn't be as hot and everyone out as it was, and that the weather would quickly change. And I was right. We have fog and mist and Carl the fog, as they would say in San Francisco. We are back into it, but I hope you all are doing well. I was thinking about this specific topic, and I was thinking about how when you look at leadership books and the advice that is out there, there isn't a lot of information out there for people who are at entry-level positions and some type of skills or suggestions on how they can navigate their careers. And it gets even harder when you look for information about how to move from an entry-level administrative assistant role to something greater. And I was thinking about how the reality is that less information exists out there because, well, people think that admins aren't as smart enough or educated enough, or they think that they don't want to do any more than where they're at. And while some admins do want to stay at their position, and some people are just fine at the entry level because they don't want the responsibilities that come with higher positions, most admins see that role as a stepping stone and want to move into another level in their career. And this is the stigma that stays on an administrative role and carries throughout their career. Even to this day, when people ask me what I used to do, and I start talking about the fact that I started at an admin role and then I went to a director role and that I was a people manager in retail, there is this curious sort of questioning look that comes over their face because it's like, are you smart or are you not smart? At least that's how I see it, because there is a question of my competence and my skill level, and add on to that being a Black woman. But this stigma has made people question whether I should tell people what I did or even to list it on my LinkedIn or on my resume, because I don't want to have to explain why I chose to take that role, which was not because I wasn't educated or smart, because I am one of the most educated, smart, credentialed people you might meet. But physically being in an entry level role, given the title and status of entry level, does not come with a silver platter of opportunity. And you have to make ways and find ways to make it happen on your own terms for yourself. And I know this because that was me. With that today, I wanted to talk about how to go from an entry level role into the next level of your career, because the information is not out there and I'm sick and tired of it. And today, enough is enough for these scholars and these people who are creating books about leadership to not have anything for women of color to have as advice or resource or a tool to have a stepping stone on how to proceed from where they are if they're in an entry level role. And this is something that I work with clients on because it can be extremely hard to do when you feel like you are at a level when you feel invisible and no one is helping you grow in your career, but you're watching other people around you become way more successful, or they're becoming successful faster. So today, this episode is to discuss the impact on women of color when they are at the entry level role, and 3 strategies that I have taken personally to move into the next level. So just to set the stage, women of color experience persistent underrepresentation in leadership roles. According to data, it is going to take 50 years to reach parity for all women in corporate America. However, for white women, it will take 22 years. So at the entry level position, Latinas are the most underrepresented, followed by Black women and then Asian women. So this data is telling us off the gate that at the beginning of the corporate pipeline, women of color are facing some significant challenges and barriers because they are starting off at a disadvantage. And some of the reasons that we know this to be true, because there are systemic things inside of these corporations that are happening and external to the corporation as well. The first thing is the double bind. This is when women of color are facing both gender and racial biases. And then there's this conflicting expectation based on gender and racial stereotypes. So I'm a woman, I'm a Black woman, and there's this expectation that Black women probably are supposed to stay in their place. They are not supposed to rock the boat. They are not supposed to challenge the status quo. And they need to be good, kind women and know their place and not try to do something different than maybe caretake, be home with the children. This is happening, like we're seeing this in our world right now with women in general, where there's this expectation that women should be back in the home. But I want you to know that for women of color, it is a double bind because of our Blackness or our being Hispanic or being Asian. Like there's this double bind that we face. There's also this thing called the myth of the pipeline. And this is when organizations claim that there's a lack of diverse candidates out there. And they're like, there's no candidates, there's nobody to, interview, there's nobody to bring into the organization. We just can't find the expertise that we need. When the reality is, it's actually a retention and promotion process, because we get those people in and then we don't know how to retain them. We don't promote them. And so they leave. And then when people are looking at the organization, they don't see representation. And so they're like, why should I go there? But then also that opens up the door for bias in the interview process and the hiring process, because now you have people who are interviewing and hiring, and we know from data and from psychology that people tend to gravitate to people who look like them and who have the same experiences as them. And so most of these hiring managers don't have the same experiences and don't look like the candidates that are coming in. And so why even hire them? Why even bother? Why even promote them? This is what's happening. So there is a myth that there's a pipeline problem, but really it's not about a pipeline problem, because we are out there, we are smart, and we are ready to work, but it's the retention and promotion process that is broken. And then there's this thing called culture fit. I get so sick of hearing about this, because we need to stop saying that people need to fit into the criteria that favors a dominant group over others. When they are talking about do they fit, what are you talking about? Are you talking about, do they fit with who you are? Do they have the same culture as you? And again, like I said, people gravitate to people who look mostly like them. And so if you're looking for fit, you're looking for the person who is your friend, the person who is going to be similar to who you are, who thinks similar to you. And we know that is a setup for lack of innovation and transformation in corporations. So we should stop saying we're looking for the best fit, because that is not the answer. A little bit about my experience as an admin at an entry level role is I started off in retail as an admin. I was the regional administrative assistant. And in this role, it was a lot more leadership responsibility than what it was on my second leg of being a administrative assistant in biotech. In my retail experience, I actually was making more money coming out of the store into the corporate office as an administrative assistant. I got a significant pay raise, and I was working 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So there wasn't the weekends, the overnights, the nights, the early mornings, none of that. I just really had a well-balanced work schedule. And I was literally like the right hand to my boss. And I felt that way because I was doing payroll, looking at bonuses, I was doing background checks, I was making decisions. And of course, I had all the other tasks of an administrative assistant, photocopies, ensuring things like rooms were set up, things like that. But I literally had such of a holistic experience that gave me so much leadership skills that basically prepared me for where I am at now. And as you recall, if you've listened to my other episode where I introduce myself and I talk about my journey, I came from being a people manager in the store before I went into the corporate office. So I was able to maintain a lot of those leadership skills and a lot of those leadership responsibilities when I became an admin. Now, ended up getting laid off because the company was going through a restructure. And so, business is business, no hard feelings. I ended up moving into a different industry, which was biotech. When I got into biotech and I became an admin, I thought it was going to be the same type of role and I was going to be doing the same type of thing. But this time I was literally ordering lunches, looking for conference rooms, cleaning up after conference meetings. So let me tell you, I remember at the beginning, I was like being asked to go clean up the lunch after somebody had finished, a whole group of leaders, like we are talking about multiple six-figure leaders, were eating. And I remember saying, I am not nobody's mama except for the 4 kids that I have at home. And I don't understand why, as a leader, you can't pick up your trash and throw it in the garbage. Why are you asking me to come in the conference room after you've eaten to clean up? I am happy and proud to say that I was able to shift that and make it more so that everybody collectively had a responsibility for cleaning up after themselves. But again, this was what I ended up going to as an admin. And it was frustrating. What was also frustrating was that there was no one asking me what I wanted to do, what was my next step, how did I want to be trained, how did I want to be nurtured for my next level of my career. As a matter of fact, there was no roadmap at all for an admin. And this is what happens with a lot of service type of entry level roles, is that there is no path. There is no way that is clear on how we are supposed to go from A to B. And it can be extremely frustrating if you are ambitious. A lot of women that I work with are ambitious women of color like myself, and we really want to see what's the next phase, what's the next level. I don't think anybody should be stuck in a position for the rest of their lives if they don't want to. And this is those old systemic beliefs that you go to work and you stay in that position, you keep your head down, and you are in that position forever. There is no movement. Times have changed, and it's just not like that anymore. People are actually wanting to do different things, but sometimes where we start doesn't provide that roadmap for us to get to the next level. So there was a turning point in my career where I was like, I'm going to do something different. I am going to have to take charge of my career and be proactive. I can't wait for somebody to ask me, what do you want to do? I have to literally be like, this is what I want to do. Who do I need to talk to? What classes or training do I need to take? And let's go. Here's the thing. Women are up against a lot in organizations because of how the system views us, because the system views us as helpers, as the caretakers. And so seeing us move into managerial type of roles is sometimes odd for some companies. There are some companies for sure that are more on the progressive side and are actually promoting women, but it's still not as fast as they promote men. Companies are literally starting to scale back many of the programs that were in place in the pandemic that focus on advancing women in the workplace. So programs like Things for Career Development, mentorship, sponsorship is not the same like it used to be. Women of color are also receiving less support from their managers. You hear that? Women of color are receiving less support from their managers in order to be successful in their careers. Now, I don't know what the exact number or percentage is of less support and what that means, but my God, we already was not receiving a lot of support. So what is happening? We do see that employee resource groups are there for women. I did lead one successfully, and there was a lot of programming and things that we did. But what I saw is that there was a gap that companies don't have an employee resource group specifically for women of color. And this is not to say that, oh, here we go again with separating the white women from the women of color, but there are unique experiences for sure that women of color go through that needs a little bit more attention. And there is just the belief that it is hard for women of color and white women to actually heal together until they're mature enough to heal together. And there's some work that needs to be done separately before you bring them together. And employee resource groups, in their intention, which is a great intention, is like, how do we develop and how do we move more women up the ladder? Don't take into consideration this double bind or this culture fit or the broken rung or the concrete ceiling. These are all things that are happening. And the glass ceiling, I'm sure you've heard of, is the term that represents all women, but the concrete ceiling is what women of color face. The double bind, like I said, we have both race and gender at play that is up against us. And when you have a concrete ceiling, you can't even see through the ceiling. So, I mean, the glass ceiling, at least I could see what's going on. I could kind of figure out and read their lips and see what they're saying. The concrete ceiling makes me think of a person in prison who is in solitary confinement and they cannot see anything. They don't even know what time it is. They don't know what is coming down the pipeline. They don't know who is going to join them, who's going to leave them. You just don't know. This is just taken away from you. And I'm just painting the picture so you can feel and you can see that this issue is deep for women of color. And that's why we can't sit on the sidelines as bystanders and then just hope that things change. We have to literally be better about being proactive and taking initiative over our careers. No one is going to tell you how to do something, and no one is going to do that for you in the system that you are in, because the system was not designed for you to be a manager or, like I like to say, a leader. The system wasn't designed for that. So I want to share the 3 things that I learned to do in order to advance in my career and move from an administrative assistant who was cleaning up after break meetings and meetings that senior leaders were sitting in to a person who made multiple 6 figures in her career as a director. The first thing is you need to network before you need it. It is important. It is critical that you build relationships early. I built relationships by volunteering for projects that was low-hanging fruit that the senior leaders actually cared about. And a lot of those types of initiatives and things that I joined were more culture building, but it allowed me to be able to meet new people, to get closer to the leaders, to showcase my skills, and to eventually start to make direct requests for mentorship and sponsorship. And so as a networker, it doesn't necessarily take you going to 1,000,001 events. And to be honest with you, if you don't want to do a lot of initiatives or get on a lot of teams, you don't have to do that either. But you do have to start talking to people. I decided to do it the way that I did it because I am an introvert at heart. And it's really hard for me to start small talk and just to stop somebody at the water cooler and start a conversation if I don't know what they like, who they are, what they're interested in. And so when you're close to people working on teams and you're in a collaborative fashion with them, it's easier to get to know them and start learning more about them so you know what pushes their buttons and what they actually care about. And so that is how I built my network. And I built that network before I needed it. And I had the relationships that when I was ready to move, and I'll talk about this on a different podcast episode, But when I was ready to move, literally after getting my coaching certification, somebody that I had worked with on a team saw that certification, asked me questions about it, and felt comfortable talking to me about my experience learning or training to be a coach. And they were like, guess what? There's this new coaching team. And that's how I got into my next role. So build your network before you need it. The second thing is you need to identify the skills or create your own roadmap for how you're going to get to the next level. This means you're going to have to understand the industry standards, your organization standards. You're going to have to understand what the requirements are and then know what potential barriers are. A lot of times we figure out like, okay, these are all the things I need to do, but we don't really evaluate and look at the potential barriers that you will possibly come up against that you need to be ready for. This is a game of chess, not checkers, when we talk about our careers and building these skills. And so you have to be strategically 2 and 3 steps ahead, 2 or 3 plays ahead, as my husband would say. So I have created in my one-on-one coaching program when I work with my clients, the Career Advancement Roadmap tool. And this is designed for women of color that I systematically help them research, understand, and plan for the industry standards and requirements that they need to advance in their careers. So it provides a structured way to gather information, analyze the different career paths, and create an action plan for your development. And so this is the cart, like I like to call it. We're pulling the cart, which is the Career Advancement Roadmap tool. And it is a great way to really figure out what is it that I need to do and how do I really create this roadmap for myself so that I am able to advance in my career. So the third thing is be ready to implement the plan. We can't just develop something and then think, okay, we're good. We actually have to implement it. We have to put it into action. And the way that I put my particular thing into action is first I had to get my family support. So it was going to take my husband, my mom, even my children would have to support me because the reality is when you are moving into a leadership role, there's a lot more time that's being pulled on you. You are having to do so many things. One of the things that happened in my role was like traveling, doing overnights where I wasn't even home. I was staying in hotels, working with different teams. I was doing the damn thing and I enjoyed this. This was amazing. I love this time of my life. But it did come with sacrifice and giving up some things like time with my children or being able to just go to their different events. And I had to really plan, like my Google Calendar was my lifesaver, but I also had to sacrifice. I remember going through coach training and would literally go from San Francisco to San Leandro, maybe? No, I would go from San Francisco, all the way to Oakland. And if y'all know anything about San Francisco traffic, we're talking an hour, hour and a half to get there, especially in rush hour traffic. But I would leave work, hurry up and go get my daughter, go to Oakland to take her to dance class, to be on time to take my coaching training in my car. So I sit in my car with an iPad or a laptop connected to a hotspot or something. I can't remember during that time if I had a hotspot on the phone or I had an iPad, but I definitely was taking those calls from the car. And oh, what a time it was. I won't forget that time of my life, but I had to sacrifice while still showing up for my kids and making sure they had what they wanted to do as well. And when you're implementing this plan, you are going to make sure you write in how your family will help you and what you're giving up, but also what you're gaining. And this is where you're going to track your progress and really pay attention to how far you're going and what you're doing and what you're being successful at and what progress you're making is super important. Talking really briefly about the dopamine and reward response. So we all know that dopamine is associated with pleasure and motivation. And when you are able to track your progress will trigger the dopamine response, and it will literally release dopamine into the brain. And this creates this positive feedback loop that encourages you to keep going. So think of when you are losing weight and you're either getting stronger, you're losing the weight, you're having more endurance or stamina. When you can clock in your brain and really stop and take a moment to say, oh, I did that, that's a positive feedback loop that is going to help you keep going. So you want to write that into the plan as well and be able to implement that within your plan. Now, you do need to have moments of course correction, and means that you're going to have regular review and regular adjustment to your plan. The course correction is going to allow for you to notice or catch when you are deviating from the plan. So if you are able to catch this, the early detection is going to raise the issue up faster for you, and you're going to notice it faster, and it'll be less disruptive for you. So you'll keep going. You won't worry about different things. So in my case, I had my organization did not want to pay for my coach training class, right? But I caught this early on. I asked a question early on. I caught it. I did an adjustment to my plan. Like, okay, so that means that it's going to come from me and from my family and household. Okay, so let me talk to my husband. Okay, boom, got that. All right, so let's see. What are the things that we're going to have to give up? Maybe date nights, maybe some extra channels on cable TV, or maybe we can't eat out all the time. Like whatever it is, like I already had that in my mind, so I knew what I needed to do. I just want to remind you that progress often isn't linear. So when you're reviewing things, it's going to help you identify when you've hit a plateau, and it's going to help you make those adjustments so that you don't get stagnant and you could just reignite or reinvigorate yourself to move towards the progress. When you review and adjust, this is also going to prevent burnout. So we get tired when we are just going, and we actually don't know how far we've come and how far we've got to go. And so we want to prevent the burnout so that we don't get exhausted and we don't lose our determination. We want to maintain our long-term productivity in all of this. And so keep on reviewing, adjust, review, adjust. It's not a failure if you have to adjust some things and turn it around and do something different. It's not a failure. It is necessary in the process. I come from the agile world as well, and part of that is experimentation. And when you're experimenting, you are regularly reviewing and adjusting. And then these reviews also provide a lot of opportunity for you to learn and for you to improve. So when you're analyzing what's working and what isn't, it's going to lead to, oh, I've learned this new thing. Oh, I know that I can't do that anymore. Oh, I can't lift that 10-pound weight until I lift the 5-pound first. Oh, I can't run as fast yet, but I'm going to keep training for it. And this iterative process, it leads to continuous improvement. And your strategy and your execution just gets better over time because now you've learned some new things. So to recap, what we've been talking about today about moving from the entry level to the next stage of your career as a woman of color, let's just recap the 3 strategies that we've explored today. The first one, network before you need it. This means building meaningful relationships early in your career, cultivating a diverse network that includes peers, mentors, and potential sponsors. And remember that your network is not just about who you know, but who knows you and your capabilities. The second thing is to identify your skills and create a roadmap. Use tools like my CART tool, which is the Career Advancement Roadmap tool, to have a system to research and plan how you're going to advance in your career. This tool helps you understand the skills and the experiences required for whatever you desire, whatever role you desire, and then you create a personal development plan to get to that next role. And then the third thing is be ready to implement the plan. Turn your roadmap into action. Again, turn your roadmap into action. Faith without works is dead. That means you have to move, you have to be doing something, you have to be going towards something. So set clear goals, track your progress regularly, and be prepared to adjust whatever strategy you have as needed. And then I also want you to remember the importance of self-advocacy and how you're going to have to advocate for yourself, and just the psychology of progress and how you maintain the motivation, which is the dopamine release that I talked about. These strategies are not just theoretical. They are practical tools that have been proven effective for many women of color, and how they can overcome some of these systemic barriers that come into place, like the double bind or the culture fit or, the pipeline myth. It helps to overcome these when they're trying to advance in their careers. I encourage you to take action today. Start by evaluating your current network and identifying one new connection you can make this week. Then I want you to begin researching the skills that you need for your next role, and then draft the first version of your career roadmap. Your progress not only benefits you, but it also helps your family. It helps other women of color, and it helps you to build this legacy of being a leader. As you advance, I want you to commit to supporting and mentoring others. Too many times we get to where we go and then we don't look back and pull up. Promise me that you're going to support and mentor other people, share your experiences, offer guidance, advocate for inclusive policies in your workplace. So the way that we hire, the way that we develop, advocate for policies that could be set up to ensure that women aren't losing out on these development programs after the pandemic, but we are actually making them better. This is how we build the support and the representation that we need in the workplace. You have the power to shape your career. So stay persistent, keep on learning, and never underestimate yourself and underestimate the impact of your voice, and that your presence in leadership roles is necessary. Thank you for tuning into this episode. I hope these strategies will empower you to take charge of your career and break through this concrete ceiling. We could break through it, y'all. Remember, your success is not just personal. It's a catalyst for broader change. It belongs to all of us. We need each other. When one of us rises, we all rise. Let's continue to support each other and work towards a more inclusive and equitable workplace for all women of color. Talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Leadership Beyond the Title podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, hit like, follow, and leave a comment. Share with your friends, family members, and other women of color leaders. Inside my one-on-one leadership coaching program, I will help you become the leader that you want to be with work-life integration and peace. By tapping into networks, growing your visibility and confidence, you will go from untapped, unseen, and underrepresented to attracting opportunities to take your career and your life to the next level. I use an equity-centered lens in my approach so that you feel seen, safe, empowered, excited, and committed to attract, create, and land opportunities in an unconventional way. To work with me, join my email newsletter, or to learn more about me, click the links in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to being your coach. See you next week.